On the Canadian side, the 3047 St. Patrick Avenue, you can get a tiny shack for $549,900. On the American side, you get a much bigger standalone home for $164,000.
Some Canadians are shocked at how much things cost when they can get them in the US for much less.
Here's the US price. $147. Same bag in Canada.
This includes everything from groceries and petrol to haircuts and medical care, which puts a huge strain on their family funds and health as a whole. But why do prices in Canada seem so high? They have a lot of different reasons that make them complicated. However, what's important to note is that these prices are set in large part by the government through taxes, rules, and market interventions. Today, we will talk about why almost everything costs a lot more in Canada than in the US, even though the two countries are close to each other. So, almost everything, especially food, costs more in Canada. One might argue that the high prices are simply caused by both the difficulty of moving goods across Canada's huge land area and the fact that the grocery market is very concentrated. This is a very legitimate point to consider and does contribute to a rise in prices. But it's not just that. The difference is still too huge to attribute to factors like these. Of course, a few big companies sell most of Canada's food, which means there is less competition and prices are higher. But there is more to the story. About 50% of Canadians shop at a small group of places that are connected. This makes people worry about market dominance and how it affects prices. Some people believe that unfair business tactics, such as setting prices and limiting competition, causes prices to go up for consumers. This is a very common occurrence throughout the globe and often requires serious government intervention to prevent from happening. Today, Canada's food market has become less competitive over time. There used to be more local grocery chains in 1986, but now there are only a few big ones left after mergers and purchases. Consumers have fewer options and pay more because there isn't as much competition, which is often explained by the way the market works in Canada. If we take a look at the US food market, on the other hand, it's more competitive, so there are more choices and prices stay low. Before we move further ahead in this video, here's a quick reminder for you to take out a moment and subscribe to our channel if you like our content. Now that we're past that, let's talk about how there is also a problem in the Canadian housing market, where prices are going up much faster in the US. The average price of a home in Canada was much higher than in the US by late 2023. This showed how bad Canada's affordability problem really was. This is really bad in big towns like Vancouver and Toronto. This is happening because of a number of things, such as strict rules on land use, higher taxes, and the cost of owning a house. Also, cell phone bills in Canada are much higher than in the US. This is partly because there isn't much foreign competition in the Canadian market. Companies don't get into price wars because there isn't much competition, so data costs are high. In 2023, Canada had some of the most expensive cell phone plans in North America. It also had some of the most expensive plans in the world. Extra taxes are one reason for this high price. Canada's air travel is also pricey, for the same reasons that cell phone and food prices are high. High prices are caused in part by the fact that there isn't much competition in the flight business. In addition, Canada has higher running costs for airlines, with airport fees playing a big role in this. In the end, this cost is passed on to customers, which is why flights within Canada are sometimes more expensive than trips to other countries. The high prices are also a problem for Canadians because they affect many parts of their daily lives and their ability to make money. You have to pay these fees to use the gates and apron, as well as for security, navigation services, and airport updates. There are fees at other foreign airports as well, but Canada's are very high. For example, Toronto's Pearson Airport charges Air Canada a lot of money to land a Boeing 737 MAX. These fees include charges for each person and each minute that the plane is at the gate. That's not all. The Greater Toronto Airports Authority raised Pearson's customer fees and aeronautical fees by a lot in January. According to The Globe, when you add up all the fees for each person, it's shockingly 83% more expensive per seat at Canadian airports than in the US. However, wait until you hear how much petrol, booze, and other goods cost. In Canada, The high prices of these things aren't so much due to competition in the market as they are to the taxes the government puts on things like petrol, diesel, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, and vaping goods. Unlike sales tax, these taxes are added during production, which means they have an effect on the final price that the consumers pay. Canada also has special taxes, such as the government carbon tax, which is somewhat offset by payments to people who take action on climate change in some areas. These taxes are meant to change how people buy things, like pushing them to be more eco-friendly or cutting down on smoking, but it has a big effect on prices of things like petrol. For example, by late 2023, petrol prices in Canada were about the same as the world average. However, these taxes still had an effect on the costs. When compared to the prices around the world, these taxes have a big effect on Canadian prices. They are one of the main reasons for this, along with supports. Similarly, the price of alcoholic drinks are high because of many federal, regional, and territorial taxes. Spirits are taxed the most. Based on studies, taxes seem to make up a big chunk of the end retail price. This extra cost is not only annoying for Canadians, it also makes it much harder for them to buy things. Simple things like family dinners and weekend trips cost more for the average Canadian because their money doesn't go as far. The stress over money doesn't end there though, as the cost of living in Canada goes up. Some Canadians are thinking about moving to the US to find better job prospects. This possible departure of skilled workers and young professionals is a scary thought for Canada's future. The country could lose ability, innovation, and potential as people have to make tough economic choices. There is one important aspect to consider here when looking into the Canada and US comparison. Regarding healthcare, it's important to know that Canadian residents do benefit from a publicly funded healthcare system, which is largely financed through taxes. Unlike in the US, where healthcare costs can be a significant personal expense and are often tied to employment or private insurance plans. Canadians typically do not pay directly for most healthcare services. This publicly funded healthcare system covers a wide range of services, including doctor visits, hospital stays, and a significant portion of prescription medicines, though it varies by province. So while Canadians face high costs and taxes in many areas, they do receive certain benefits like universal healthcare, which is not typically available in the US without substantial personal expense or insurance coverage. This aspect of the Canadian system can be seen as a significant advantage, especially considering the high costs of healthcare in the US. Don't forget to check out our other videos if you like this one and want to learn more economic changes and indicators.